Hey y'all, today's guest is Perry Eaton. Perry is in Ivy Boy, Perry is in Beeef, both incredible projects, but Perry's also the co-founder of Allston Pudding. You will hear me mention multiple times during this episode that I did not realize that until we started, and it was a very happy accident. Allston Pudding are about to celebrate 15 years of being a blog, which is really cool. So in this episode, we talked a bit about running Allston Pudding, but we also talked about the writing process behind the Ivy Boy self-titled debut. We talked about Perry's experience working with Beeef and how the writing process differs when you're in a band versus being a solo artist. And we also talked about something really cool. His dad played on the Ivy Boy album, so that is very unique, very cool. As always, if you want to support, you can go to tapeclub.substack.com. And yeah, enjoy my conversation with Perry. All right, Perry, thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate you being here. I will say it wasn't until 5 minutes before we started that I found out you are the co-founder of Allston Pudding, as well as being a brilliant musician. Legendary publication. That is very cool. So yeah, thank you for founding it, I guess.
Yeah, well, it was a long time ago. Feels like a past life almost, but yeah, had a ton of fun doing Allston Pudding for a decent chunk of my young adulthood and seeing a ton of good bands and listening to great music. And now it's still going and it's still being operated by folks who are younger and cooler and have more of an ear to the ground than I do. But it's cool to be able to kind of cheer it on from the sidelines. So, yeah.
That is one of the more underrated abilities, is to know when to step away and to give it to the other people, because you can only write about the same, style of music for so long. It's things move, and sometimes we don't move into those spaces with the culture, so to speak.
Yeah, it's also like there was a time in my life where I was going to shows like 3-4 times a week, and now my couch is just too good to pass up most of the time. It's like, go out, stay in and watch reruns of something. Let's do that instead. Yeah.
Hey, preaching to the choir. I 100% agree with you there. Okay, we'll talk about Allston Pudding, I think, in a little bit later in this segment. What I do want to start with is your self-titled debut, Ivy Boy. The artist would be Ivy Boy as well. You previously played in Beeef, so I imagine Ivy Boy was kind of bubbling or happening in a parallel to some extent. How long has the debut been in the works, and how long have you been working on it, kind of? Yeah,
quite a while. Beeef is still going strong too. We have a big show next month. But our most recent Beeef album, we had kind of started writing in 2019, like right before the pandemic, and it just took a while to kind of get our footing back, and that album ended up being recorded in a lot of different pieces over a long period of time. And in that time, I was like, well, I'm not going to really stop writing music. I was doing we had a lot of time to kill in that era, so I was just writing a lot of stuff. And before the Beeef album even came out, I had more than an album's worth of material already set to go, but it was also taking a different shape too. It felt a little bit more kind of like acoustic focused, like kind of halfway between Beeef and halfway between just singer-songwritery stuff. So I met some really good dudes, Aaron and Ryan, who ran a studio in Brighton, Massachusetts called Hot Take Studio out of their basement, where they would kind of they were down to not only record and mix and master, but also play on the album too. So it was kind of like the perfect, met those dudes at the perfect time. They recorded it, they play on it, they're all over it, and helped really kind of bring the songs that I had been putting together to life. And yeah, within a year, we put out a new Beeef record in the fall of 2024, and then in the spring of 2025, I started releasing stuff for this Ivy Boy album.
What are some of the differences in the writing process between how y'all do it in Beeef and how you do it in Ivy Boy? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Beeef has been out since like 2015 or something like that. I think when you start building those rhythms at that age, you kind of develop a different process, and then you start a different project 10 years later, 10 years wiser. maybe your process is different. So tell me a bit about kind of the differences in the process.
Yeah, it's actually probably not as different as I would have expected. Typically, I've always kind of brought main ideas and lyrics to, with Beef, I would bring kind of lyrics and a basic song structure to rehearsal, and then we would kind of work it out from there. Everyone would put on their own little spin on it. And I'd say that's gotten, as I've done more and more recording with Beef, people have kind of taken more ownership over their own, finishing touches on songs, and we've added more layers of production and stuff. Ivy Boy, I knew that I'd kind of go in having to kind of have a lot of the parts in my head, kind of a more fully formed idea, and kind of be the one to dictate in the studio like the direction I wanted it to go in. I think that's been the starkest difference in that. In Beef, I've always been hesitant because I don't necessarily speak the like production and recording language as well as some of the other guys in that band. So they've taken a bit of the lead on like the production and post-production. And in this, I think I've had the opportunity to learn a little bit more about what that looks like, have a little bit more confidence in what I'm able to vocalize in that process, but also having the great advantage of some guys who really know how to play and bring their own ideas to the table too. So a lot of similarities, but a few differences too. Yeah.
Here's a question I have for you between, the difference between being in a band versus having I know other people played on Ivy Boy, but let's call it a solo project.
Sure.
So everything I've ever done has been kind of solo, where I'll bring in friends to play on it, or like we'll have people there for the session or come in for a day, do some stuff or whatever. But generally it's like, it's my project. I'm the one who kind of determines where we're going with it. I've never been in a full-fledged band like that where you have to kind of, come to agreements or like find the middle road between everybody. I imagine that's kind of difficult to balance, but is logistically more than anything, is it a situation where everyone always is at the sessions, or like, is it sometimes where, one person from the band will show up and do stuff and you'll come in to the next session and be like, whoa, I didn't hear that. Like you did all this while we were gone, or, does that ever happen? Stuff like that?
Totally. Yeah. And it's interesting. As years have gone on, we've done it in so many different ways in Beef. The first record was like pretty DIY. We recorded, we did a lot of it in the room together. And then as time has gone on, we've done it a bit more asynchronously. And like a couple of us will get together, or one person will just record overdubs and then like kind of throw it out there to the band and get feedback. I think that's kind of why albums have taken longer to make with Beef now, is just because we're doing it in so many different pieces and everyone is kind of like testing it to see what fits with the rest of the band and stuff. So it becomes a little bit of a scheduling and logistical nightmare at times, but I think we've also all grown a little bit more patient over time too, and know that like the testing and refining and the trial by error and stuff actually makes for a better. I think we would all probably agree that our most recent album is our collective favorite and probably our sharpest. So sometimes like just the time you put into it really just makes a difference. I tend to be the impatient one in the band where I'm like, let's just get it over with. And they're a good balance to me to be like, no, let's do it right, actually. So.
Well, you know what? That's why you went and took a second to make the solo thing, I guess. Because, I'm the kind of, I don't want to put this on you, but I'd say I'm kind of the same way where, for me, the more people that are in the studio, the like more frustrated I kind of get, where I'm just like, can we just fucking be agile and move, please? Like, we don't need to like overthink every little decision. So my ideal collaborative process is like me and a producer who I trust and like click with. And then it's like, let's go. We can, in 3 days, we can make a fucking album. You know what I mean? Cause
totally,
we're just pushing ahead, which is awesome. I guess talking about the recording process, what are some things you learned during the recording and writing process for Ivy Boy, or some challenges that came up that you were like, whoa, this is new. Didn't face this one in Beef?
Yeah, I will say challenges were pretty few because the guys I was able to collaborate with just did an unbelievable job. They taught me a lot about like, this is going to get like oddly technical, at least for my, like, again, I speak the studio language with poor fluency, but, they would do a lot of like doubling vocals and like, doing one left, doing one center, doing one right, and like ways that they can pan that or balance that in the mixing process, which like I had never really done before with Beeef. And so learning a lot about the purpose behind that was really cool. They taught me a really interesting lesson early on that like now I also swear by of like, put shaker and or tambourine on everything. Cause it just like shaker's the hit maker is what they would say, is like, it just gives it like the, that little like jolt of, and from every example they've shown me, it tends to make a difference. So it's just like little flourishes like that. I think they were also really, helpful in giving me a little bit of tough love around like song length and stuff of like, do we really need this last verse? And like, could we switch up the structure of this a little bit? So they were gentle on how they would give feedback, but it all made like a really big difference and has been super helpful of how I think about now, like even writing songs and song structure too.
So were you generally leaning in the direction of making the songs a little too long?
Yeah, this is an interesting, like, so when you talk about band dynamic with Beeef too, two of us are big Grateful Dead fans and jam band fans, me being one of them. And the other two are like, one of them like grew up in hardcore scenes, and like the other one just like loves all kinds of like ambient and indie rock and everything. So we've always been kind of able to counterbalance each other out. Whereas with this project, like sometimes it was like, leave me to my own devices and I'll write like a 7-minute song. And that's just like, nobody has time for that. And so they've been helpful. And for the ones that needed to be long, like they were supportive of that. And for ones that just like felt like they could be trimmed, they were really helpful in that too.
That is so wild to hear, because I'm the exact flip side of the coin. Like literally, if I had it, and I do have it my way a lot, but I was gonna say, if I had it my way, my songs would be 1:45. And I think if you look at the last record I made, it's like literally every song is about 2 minutes. And, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that either.
I don't know. I think there's a lot of radio friendliness to that. And there's, it's not the worst problem to have.
Well, the radio is dead, right? So like, who are we being friendly for? Like I said, I love the shorties, but the thing is, the reason I do them, I think, is because I already know what's coming up. So to me, that little flourish, that little 1-bar weird melodic accent can come one time, and I've heard it because I know it's coming. But if it's a song, if the song's only 1:45 and it happens one time at 1:12 for 1 second, does it make a difference? Maybe you do want to be a little more gratuitous with it. It's a puzzle. The whole thing's always a puzzle. That's what's so fun about it. Your dad, I think, played on this, right? So tell me a bit about how that experience was.
Yeah, my dad, he played in a Boston band long ago in the 70s called Duke and the Drivers. And they were signed to ABC Records. They put out a couple albums on ABC Records, and he toured and played some pretty awesome shows. He always loves to like kind of pull one out of his like, I guess in nowadays they would call it a humble brag, just like oh yeah, we played with them at the Boston Garden and stuff like that. I was like, oh, all right, cool. But I grew up listening to his music. The first concert I ever went to was like one of their like reunion shows when I was little. And I've always like, super admired my dad for many reasons, but his work in music. And we'd never really had too much of a chance to collaborate before. And I figured, since I was kind of working on my own timeline and this was kind of just like a project I had in my head, it was like, why not do some of the things that I really want to do with it? And one of them, see if I could get my dad in the studio. So yeah, on the last track on the album, it's called Olive and the Gibber. He rips a pretty tasty solo and does some cool lead guitar work on it. So it was cool to include him in that.
Hell yeah. I love that. How many takes did it take him? Did you comp him at all? What happened? Was he clean? Was he one take dad, or was he a 20 take Franken-comp dad?
More towards the latter, actually. He was trying to, he was his own worst critic, I think, and wanted to keep doing take after take. But he was able to get a bunch of good riffs down that we were able to kind of like, the solo was clean. And then the riffs were kind of sprinkled throughout a little bit. Yeah.
What was that first conversation like where you asked him if he wanted to play on it? Was it like you just texted him a demo and were like, yo, dude, so like I got like 30 seconds for you in here if you want to jump on?
Oh, yeah. He was there in a second. Yeah. It was like there was no question. So he couldn't have been there faster and more supportive of it. So.
And so when you play live, you've probably played some of the Ivy Boy stuff live. Has he done like a little guest spot where he comes up and just does his thing and then for one track and then gets out of there?
Haven't had him up yet. We'll see. Most of the Ivy Boy live shows have been, there's been a kind of a mix. I've done just some solo stuff. And then I've been accompanied for a few gigs by most of the folks who play in this band called Wool. They're a Providence band, really awesome band, and they actually used to be a lot of them used to be in a band called Kid Mountain, who might appear later in this episode in some form. Awesome musicians, old friends who were kind enough to be my backing band on a few gigs, and probably some going forward too. So. I've had to, that's been another kind of challenge of this project, is learning how to adopt it into a solo set, which is much easier than doing the Beef stuff solo because that's so dependent on the other players in the band. But this one I wanted to, and it was on my mind when I was writing the songs of like, would this be adaptable into just me and a guitar? And so far, so good.
So I have a couple bigger picture questions here, and one of them is about playing live. What is your attitude like towards touring, towards playing live, and how has it changed over the last decade?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will say I've done pretty minimal touring over the years, even though I've been playing with Beef for a long time. We got our start, what felt to us like kind of a late start. We were in our mid to late 20s at that point, and we had all kind of had jobs at that point, and that's kind of been the case ever since. So we've done like week-long tours and stuff, but nothing. We've never packed the van and done like a month-long or anything like that. So my experience to that is kind of limited, but I still love gigging when I can. And probably do so at least once a month in some capacity, whether it's Beef or Ivy Boy. And it's different doing Ivy Boy than Beef. Beef, it's in some ways it's humbling because Beef has 10 years worth of accrued fans and listeners, and Ivy Boy in some ways is like a reset. I've been lucky enough to have some kind of spillover of people interested in this project, but also people who are completely unaware of Beef, who have encountered Ivy Boy on its own. So I think that's where I still feel really encouraged to gig. Not to mention, it kicks my butt to like get out to shows too. I'm been able to stay close to the local scene, which through Allston Pudding and ever since has been super important to me. So it's cool to be able to kind of, through the lens of playing shows, also experience some of the great younger bands and local bands that are keeping the scene strong.
Yeah, kudos to y'all and when I say y'all, to all bands who go out and play live, because that is like, that's no joke, man. I've never done it. I don't care to ever do it. It's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's like, you know, just logistically getting people together, making sure that like everyone's there on time, and all the stuff that goes into the before part of it, where you have to like make sure you're all rehearsed and all. It's too much work, and I'm too lazy. I wanted to ask, how do you feel about monetizing your music career? Is that something you ever consciously think about, or is it sort of not on your radar? I feel like you guys, like you said, started as you guys have all had full-time jobs and stuff, so maybe this is more like an outlet. I don't know, but you tell me. Do you think about monetizing your music career ever?
Yeah, I in all honesty, and we've ever since we started Beef and in the years since, I've just never been able to seriously consider what making money through music could even look like. It's too confusing to me. I don't know how bands even are able to do it. And I think if I had tried to seriously pursue it for a living, I would have long since gotten frustrated and stopped doing it probably. So there's other things that I've pursued in my life where when you fly too close to the sun, you end up kind of spoiling it for yourself. And I don't want that to happen to playing music. I'd love to be playing music for the rest of my life. Now, if somebody came to me with a huge recording contract or something like that, I would might switch my tune pretty quickly. But I just know that the opportunities for that have become smaller and smaller and smaller over the years, and it's really frustrating. And to younger bands or older bands or of any age or background who are pursuing it full time, like, you have my total support, but my heart also goes out to you because I know what an uphill battle that it feels like. And we're lucky enough to make a little bit of money, enough to kind of put back into the respective projects, whether it's Beeef or Ivy Boy, but not much more than that. It's hard to pay the bills. And so, yeah, I think we're probably, I'm probably looking at keeping it as just kind of a side hustle and a passion project. But it's something, even though, people do that and pursue it just for hobby, it doesn't mean that they don't take it any less seriously too. I think a lot of people who are pursuing music as a side hustle really care about it and really feel good when people listen to it and share it and talk about it. And that's just as important to me. And I'm really grateful for those who have tuned into it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you 100% on that. I think that as soon as you try to monetize something or market it or whatever, it kind of loses its sheen. It doesn't feel like art anymore. You're just, then this is just for me personally, but like, if I'm out here like having to make content every day about how like, you should listen to my new single, it's like, motherfucker, you're 35, like, chill. Like, you know what I'm saying?
No, I feel too. That's like part of the reason I'm like, if I really made a concerted effort to try and TikTok my music, I would look like the biggest fool in the world, and it just like wouldn't reflect kindly on my songs or my music, I feel like. So
yeah, it's like it'll find the people who it needs to find, you know what I mean? It doesn't need to be global, it just needs to find its sliver of people. Before we go to the break, I do want to talk about Allston Pudding real quick. So yeah. How did that all start? And I guess, like, did you think that it would still be around at a time like this? Because look, starting a music publication has always been like, so I feel like when you're in the indie DIY music scene, whatever, you either like, you do one or multiple of the following. You start a band, you start a label, or you start some sort of publication blog thing. So they're usually short-lived. Did you think like 10 years later there would be a whole community still pushing this thing?
Definitely not to the degree that it is. Yeah, we started, it was me and two of my roommates at the time. We were in college. I'd been writing for some other kind of publications a little bit, like my own blogs in high school and stuff. But we were like halfway through college and wanted to just do some sort of project, and specifically one where we could see a lot of live music, get closer to the local music scene. And so we launched it, and part of the draw was we could get free concert tickets and get into like put on guest lists and stuff. And we're like, sounds like a good deal. So that was like the initial driving force of it. And not like before long, we had buddies who started writing for it, and then friends of friends, and then photographers, and then videographers, and just people who wanted to help out in various capacities, marketing, booking, that type of thing. So it turned into this kind of like amorphous collective of people who our unifying, trait was that we just love local music and we love music. I kind of knew it at the time, but like we were on the tail end. This was 2010. So we were like on the tail end of when blogs really actually mattered anyway. And it was like, oh, it seems like a great time to start a blog, right? As they don't matter anymore. So in that respect, I'm like shocked that it still exists. But as I've seen it kind of grow over the years, I'm also not shocked in that there are so many people involved who have like remained really close and remained super close to the scene, or joined bands of their own like we did. Or, you know, there are a couple writers who got married and just had a kid. And so it's been a really cool experience. And I think it's been a pretty cool resource for the Boston music scene, at least. And next month in February, Allston Pudding's celebrating its 15th anniversary, and Beeef is going to be playing that show. So it'll be a cool kind of full circle moment. Yeah.
That's amazing. I did not know that was coming, so that is a happy accident. I'm pumped for that. This is dropping, I believe, January 29th, so cool. There will be ample lead up, I think, to that. It's a weird time, like you said. All the blogs are basically gone. I think as of this recording, just a couple days ago, Pitchfork is now paywalled. Stereo Gum, always been a pile of shit with all of its ads, whatever, fucking paywalled. But like, you're not gonna make money off of that shit, dude. If you're getting into the game to make money, you already fucked up. That's just my opinion. I don't want to put this on you, but that's my
like
opinion.
Anything music related, like if that is your end goal, first of all, you're doing it, like, especially the blogging, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You should be doing that as a resource to music listeners and bands. But like, anything involved, the creative economy is just like, I couldn't even tell you in what form it even exists. So, best to just do it because you love it first and foremost. And if you happen to stumble upon some success, financial or non-financial, that's an added bonus, I suppose.
There you go. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get into your mixtape. All right, we're back with the mixtape. And Perry, you had a very specific theme for this mixtape. So why don't you tell the listeners what your theme was?
Yeah, it would feel like a missed opportunity to not do something locally related. So this is a little bit more of a throwback, but this is a short list of favorites of local Boston bands from the late 2000s and early 2010s, which is a solid representation of the early days of Allston Pudding, which we were just talking about.
This is amazing. The theme couldn't have come together any better. I had no idea, I'm telling you, that Beeef was playing this thing. I had no idea there was a 15th anniversary or whatever. I didn't know any of this stuff. So sometimes
I almost hit you with a jam band mixtape. So I just didn't want it to be your last episode ever. So it was I went with this theme instead. Yeah.
I feel like for the jam bands, I'd be halfway there with you. Like half of them, I'd probably be like, okay, I'm down. And then there'd be a half of them where I'd be like, I can't with this. This is too much. Let's kick it all off with this first one. So the band is Furvis and the song is All Now. Why don't you tell me a bit about this band and this tune?
Yeah, so Furvis was a band that I was into in high school because they were from the town just outside of Boston called Newton, where I'm from. This band is one of them that I just consider like super instrumental in getting me into local music, because it was like a realization that great music can be right in your backyard. Really cool band. They released a few albums that can be found nowhere, and then moved out to the West Coast, changed their name to the Dead Trees, and they released a few albums. Got a little bit more buzz from that band, and then dissolved. And then a few years later, formed another band called Skaters, which ended up being signed to Warner Brothers. And kind of that was their big breakout, a little bit of a different lineup. But this was kind of the roots of that whole journey. Really awesome band, highly influenced by like Malcolmus and Pavement, as I'm sure you can tell in listening to it, but became a huge influence on me. I'd say there's probably no more band that I've ripped off in my entire life than Furvis. So I have them to thank for that.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. I'm sure they would love to hear that too. So one question I had, this is more of a big question about this playlist. When you were coming up with it, you emailed me and you were like, hey, what if the songs aren't available publicly? And I was like, I guess that's fine. You can send it to me. But how do you like listen to music or store your music? Because a few of these, I guess, weren't available publicly. You sent me MP3s of them or M4As of them. Do you have like you keep a bunch of MP3s on your local machine that you just kind of listen to, or are you all over the board? Why is this one local, I guess?
No, I wish I had more of like the library I had in high school. I wish I kept that like on a drive somewhere. I did not, but this one, the band I have kept there because like I knew that it would be a challenge to try and pick up the pieces at any point. So I've kept this one like in the cloud somewhere for years, and I listen to it a lot. There's a few other bands like that I've kept just, you know, traveling with me on various Google Drives and stuff. So they're one of
maybe next year we'll see the Allston Pudding re-release series. You guys can re-release some of these old ones. I don't know.
And if any listeners want to hear this album, I'm sure the band would not mind that. Just send me a DM or something. I'll shoot it your way. It's an unbelievable record. Really good one.
Hell yeah. Let's listen to a little bit of Furvis. Here's the song, All.
Tell me, baby, 'cause I won't change, 'cause I don't change.
Next up is Drug Rug with the song Tiny People. Tell me a bit about this one.
Yeah, I found out about Drug Rug actually via Furvis. And as I was kind of branching out into more of the local scene, this is when I was starting to go to shows a lot. I wasn't really of age yet, so a lot of the times I was sneaking into these shows or doing something where I could get into them. But Drug Rug started to create some steam in Boston. It was Tommy and Sarah who at the time were a couple and were writing music, some really cool kind of psychedelic stuff. They ended up on like some interesting like TV show soundtracks and stuff and started touring nationally. But they released 2 records that were both phenomenal. This is off of their first album, which was on streaming until recently. It is no longer, but I just find this track, this is the closing track on the album, really charming, really kind of an optimistic end to it, and just a really cool band with a cool vibe. Tommy now owns a music venue in Providence called The Myrtle, which is a really cool spot, and continues to play music. So again, early heroes of mine in the local scene.
Hell yeah. And then I love that, you know, they're still giving back in a way with having a venue. That's what you can do. That's the best way to have an impact, is to keep it local, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's listen to a little bit of it. Here is Tiny People by Drug Rug.
I guess that's what you do, and you're just a half an inch tall.
Next up, You Can Be a Wesley. The song is Rearrange the Sea. Tell me a bit about this one. Strange name, You Can Be a Wesley.
Yeah, I'm actually not even sure the significance behind that, but this was, I kind of put these in chronological order, like my own chronological order. This was, by this point, I was in college, and this is when I started going out to a lot of more like DIY shows, basement shows, that type of thing. You Can Be a Wesley, just an awesome band. They went to the same college that I went to, Boston University, and just played a ton in Boston. One of the great Boston venues around this time was Great Scott, which anyone from Boston would tell you was like the place to see local music. They I think held the record there for most times played Great Scott. So they were ever present. Really good people. They all lived in a house together and would have parties and shows at the house. Sarah, who's their lead singer, still performs under a solo outfit called SUO, and just super catchy, poppy, but garagey music that has stuck with me for years and years.
So we've had Furvis and Drug Rug and You Can Be a Wesley. Where in this where are you at in terms of being in bands or having writing about music or doing anything like that? Or are you still mostly just a showgoer?
So yeah, this is around the time just after we would have started Allston Pudding. We're going to a lot of basement shows and writing about it, creating mixtapes for the website that You Can Be a Wesley was all over those. I was also doing some writing for the Boston Phoenix too, which was like Boston's alt weekly publication, and able to write about some cool bands there. I remember doing some early writing about like Speedy Ortiz and stuff for that paper. So yeah, I was just fully immersed as kind of the more fan and journalist aspect of it. And it wasn't until probably 5 or so years later that we started actually playing music of our own.
Yeah, Speedy Ortiz, talk about a wild meteoric rise. That was sort of like the national indie scene, or the powers that be just kind of plucked them and were like, now we're going to play you on XMU every hour.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's how it was. But hey, shout out. And also shout out to You Can Be a Wesley. Let's listen to a little bit of it. Here is the song Rearrange the Sea. Next up, Fat History Month with things that I enjoy. Tell me a bit about Fat History Month.
Fat History Month were like DIY royalty, basically. Just a duo, guitarist and drummer. And this record, I remember, like it was like a if you know, you know type of record. Like anybody who was like in on it was like, wow, this album was awesome. It's an album called Fucking Despair, which is quite the name for a record. And it's like, to me, it's like one of my favorite winter albums, because the title actually like rings true. It's like a desolate record, of like, kind of like noise rock, but really interesting songwriting, really interesting moments. And I remember around this time period, the aforementioned Boston Phoenix that I was writing for would do these like annual kind of awards, and there was like Best Rock Band Award or something like that. And I remember there's this whole grassroots write-in campaign for Fat History Month of like, everybody would go write in Fat History Month, and it like crushed, and they were elected like the best rock band or something like that in Boston. So they became kind of like your favorite band's favorite band. And this record was, to me, their strongest and just a really awesome record.
So there were 3 bands on your mixtape that I knew, and this was one of them, and cool. I'm sure you know what the other 2 are, but yeah. We'll get to those. I don't want to spoil it. What I will say, generally, big picture, something that has always impressed me about Boston's DIY scene is that they have a very specific, and I don't know if it's like this anymore, but in this time period, it certainly existed. They had a very specific talent, a good batch of bands that could thread the needle and be like simultaneously loud and dissonant and also incredibly melodic, where you're like, this is so fucking weird and I should not like this, but like there's melody pulling it all together, and like there's a reason for dissonance. There's a reason for grating and scratching ideas happening, because they're being balanced out by like, I don't know how to describe it, but they're being balanced out by gentle melodies that like they're there if you're listening, I think Fat History Month are great at that. Yeah,
a really good example of that. And like just a testament to like, if you sit with some of these and you hear like the ideas behind the noise, it's like really impressive stuff. It took me a little bit with like Gorilla Toss is kind of like that too. They were a Boston band from shortly after this era, and it's like you would go to the shows and you'd hear this wall of noise and sound, but then you'd listen to their records and just hear all these like really wacky, cool ideas too. So yeah, totally hear what you're saying.
Let's listen to a little bit of Fat History Month. Here is Things That I Enjoy.
These are things that I enjoy. I like licorice-induced asphyxiation. I like real-life skill rain pounding against my
Next up, it's another one of those bands that I'd heard of, one of the 3. Krill. The song is Solitaire. Now, talk about bands that can sound angular and kind of dissonant, but like then it comes together. That's like every Krill song to me. Tell me a bit about your experience with Krill.
Yeah, Krill was like one of my favorite bands ever. I love that group. And we were onto them pretty early on. I think I might have booked their first club show ever or something like that. Because I heard this first record, which was like too DIY for its own good. They were like they recorded this like in their basement, and there are like moments on this album that like the like jack becomes unplugged for like 2 seconds or something like that. But it really is like there are moments that just stay with you, like earworms, but also lyrics and metaphors and things that they're like little philosophers, and there's just all these really interesting ideas on it. And they're a band that became really special to Boston. They became super beloved. It released a handful of really good records. From what I've heard, Jonah from Krill is still kicking the tires on doing solo stuff, but like kind of maybe putting a little Krill 2 lineup together and stuff. So yeah, they'll forever be one of my favorites.
Hell yeah, amazing. And yeah, they're like, talking about a Mount Rushmore of Boston DIY. For me, they're definitely up there. Let's listen to a little bit of Solitaire by Krill.
Thinking about me and my grievances, weakness, doofus, champion.
Next up is Earthquake Party with Pretty Little Hand. I think this is another one of those that you sent me like an MP3 of it. Does that sound right?
Probably, yeah. It's interesting. Earthquake Party's like recorded output is pretty slim. I think they put out a few EPs maybe, but they're a band that wrote like hundreds of songs. And it was kind of like we were talking about song length earlier. A lot of their songs are like 1 minute or like 1 minute, 30 seconds. Some of them sub 1 minute. And they were also one of the loudest bands in Boston too. I had the great pleasure of joining them on a short trip up to Pop Montreal, where they were playing Pop Montreal one year, and got to kind of hang with them and cool people. Justin, who's their kind of lead songwriter, still writes music. I was able to play. Ivy Boy played his like his release show, solo release show last spring, and is. I said that I used to go to like 3 or 4 shows a week. Justin, for like 15 years now, has gone to like 3 or 4 shows a week, his like nonstop. So he's one of those like local warriors. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the kind of people that are so paramount to any local music scene. And it couldn't be me, but they're important, I want to sit at home and watch Survivor.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah.
We're about 75% of the way into this mixtape. Where are we chronologically on this timeline that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, so I slowed us down a little bit. We're like in the early 2010s here. Again, we're doing Allston Pudding like hardcore here, to the point where we got kind of press passes to that Pop Montreal festival and knew that Earthquake Party was going, so we just kind of went with them up there. I think that must have been 2013. Yeah, so it's right around shortly after, probably 2 or 3 years into Allston Pudding at this point, and continuing to be kind of as embedded as we ever were in the local scene.
Yeah, hell yeah. That's when like I know exactly that feeling when your publication gets like those press passes, and I assume this was like one of the first times, and it was like a big festival and you're pumped, because that happened to me on the West Coast. I had a small little blog long time ago, and Treefort Music Festival in Boise, Idaho was like, as they started, I kind of got in with them, and I was just, it's one of those things where you're like, oh, let's apply for a video pass, whatever. Like, we'll show up and shoot videos. Who cares? And then you get it, and you're like,
Yeah.
what? I get to go to every show for free and be in the pit, and like, what the fuck? So that's...
Yeah, and then you learn years later, too, when you're like in a band or something like that, or booking shows, it's like, you couldn't, like, you're begging for people to send those emails. Can I come, like, photograph your show or something like that? So it all kind of makes sense years later. Yeah.
It's sort of a tangent, but I do wonder how much that stuff has changed. I feel like that doesn't really happen as much anymore. Maybe it does. I have no idea. But I just imagine people aren't really going to shows like that, and there's not as much demand. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear of people scaling back on touring for that very reason of like, it's just not, you're not finding across all cities the crowds coming out. Yeah.
It's a bummer, but you know what? All we can do is try to bring it back. Let's listen to a little bit of Pretty Little Hand by Earthquake Party. We got 2 songs left, and one of them is called New Hat. It's by Kid Mountain. Tell me a bit about this one.
Yeah, Kid Mountain, really solid indie band, really good hooks, and really loved them in this era. Again, like the 2012, 13, 14 era. Really awesome songwriters, and prolific too. They put out a good amount of music over a handful of years there. They now, most of the members of Kid Mountain are now in a great Providence band called Wool, with 2 O's, who have recorded also at Big Nice Studio, which we were talking about. And they also happen to, a handful of them perform in Ivy Boy's band too. So it's been awesome. Again, it's like a full circle. I get to play with some of my musical heroes here, and they're awesome guys and awesome players. But they released a few records. This one was their debut. Actually, it wasn't their debut. It was their second album. It's fantastic. And it was also like, I remember as far as local bands are concerned, like an early streaming success. Like it was early on in Spotify getting its like bearings. And I remember them like kind of blowing up on Spotify, like on like the playlists and stuff, if that was even a thing at that point. But yeah, they were pretty beloved. They were a great band.
The early Spotify days were actually like decent. You
I know
what I
right?
mean? Like I think
they could actually help small bands. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's my little trivia for you. I think so. The song that it's the biggest one, most played on my Spotify, that one got on the very first, I think, or like within the very first few months of them having it. Fresh Finds at that time it was called like Six Stringed or something like that. I don't know. They had like a weird name for it, but it basically meant music with guitars, and it got on there early. Now I think you probably have to pay. I'm not sure. I imagine there's some paywall happening.
Yeah, ugly underbelly that goes into it, I'm sure. Yeah.
There was a glimmer of hope for a second, and now I don't know. I guess our hope is emailing you and getting MP3s from that one guy. Hey, I got a guy. I got an MP3 guy. He'll hook you up. Let's listen to a little bit of New Hat by Kid Mountain. Finally, the closer. Could there be a better closer? This is the DIY Goats. This is Pile. The song is Pets. Tell me a bit about Pile. Tell the people a bit about Pile.
Yeah, like you say, DIY royalty. It's like astonishing how like people in any American city like know Pile, but they've never had like a whole lot of like mainstream success. Like, I guess that's the definition of like DIY royalty, right? Of like, they have kind of this cult audience. But also like what we were talking about with Fat History Month, and they were kind of within the same scene as Fat History Month, like, which became kind of a lot of those bands that ended up with the Exploding in Sound records and that type of thing. but like there's a lyrical content and standard behind it that's like so much higher than just like your average indie rock. Like they're saying thought-provoking things. And I think maybe one of the biggest selling points is like their tension and release, which like all builds behind Rick from Pyle's voice, which is just like an unbelievable rock scream and wail. Just a solid rock band. Their shows are always fun. Like there's always kind of a pit going and people get really jacked up when they play. And the best part is they're still doing it. And they're still releasing awesome music. They've never really faltered in that. They've been consistent for 15 plus years now. So if you've never seen a Pyle show in your city, there will be a Pyle show in your city and you should go.
Yeah, that's great advice right there. I would say Pyle are like gonna go down as the like Fugazi of that era and that play. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, I mean, that's it. There's no way for me to put into words how important they were for that entire time. There was like a specifically I know that they're still doing stuff, but there was specifically like a decade where it was like, holy shit, like they're them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
I remember in this era too. So this specific record came out a little earlier. I think this was a 2010, but then they just kept releasing great albums throughout the 2010s. And meanwhile, Rick was working at Trader Joe's, and I'd be like checking out at Trader Joe's, and I'd be like, "You're a legend! Like, you should be on tour right now." So yeah, it was cool. Just like, you know, he was a local head for sure.
I wonder if he was happy that you said that, because I feel like at Trader Joe's, isn't it like in their deal that they have to, every cashier has to make conversation with you. So you basically saved him that step. You're like, okay,
yeah, right?
You know, he saw you coming up. He's like, oh, thank God, this guy's going to talk to me about music. I don't have to
I don't
be like, so I love these tortellinis.
Yeah.
Like, let's listen to a little bit of Pets by Pyle. All right, and that's it. That was a beautiful mixtape. Any honorable mentions that didn't make the cut?
Oh my God, countless. Yeah. I'm going to think of a million more after I get off this call. But yeah, I think, again, even during that conversation, Gorilla Toss came up. I remember them being some of the wildest shows that we would see. Like basements just get torn apart when they would play shows there. And just a lot of the stuff, again, I brought up Exploding in Sound Records. There ended up being a cool little like pipeline that kind of happened between Boston and Western Mass and Exploding in Sound. There was a good chunk of bands, Cal Marx and Speedy Ortiz and all of these bands that ended up kind of running in either directly or indirectly with that label. A great band called Abad from that era that one of the members of that band recorded Beef's first album. Just endless. And the best part is it hasn't really faltered over the years. They're now, I know you had Brendan from Tiberius in not long ago, who I'm sure kept you posted on some of the great local bands that have cropped up in the scene as of recent. So continues to be strong. And I have my memories, and I also am excited about what's going on now.
Hell yeah. I'll throw a couple in there for you. Pale Hound.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And Bent Shapes. That was like a little.
Ben Patrick. Like, yeah.
So those were two that I really loved around that time.
Totally.
Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to play a game, and then we will get the hell out of here.
Cool.
All right, we're back with the game, and this game is a favorite. It's from last season. It's called Play, Pause, Stop. The idea is that play is a good thing. So I'll give you a list of 3 things, right? You play the one you like the most. You pause the mid one, and you stop the one you don't like. So I think that makes sense. Let's start with a category that I think is pretty interesting: rooms or venues. So your 3 options are a DIY summer backyard, a legendary local club, maybe, you mentioned Great Scott, let's say something like that, or a festival stage. Those are your three options. So play, pause, stop. Perry, what are you thinking there?
Cool. I will go with play DIY summer backyard. I have never done that before. It just sounds awesome. I've been wanting to play more outdoor shows whenever I can, and I just love the summer, and I associate that with probably somebody's gonna have a grill going or something. So that just sounds pleasant as hell. I'm going with that for play. I'll pause Legendary Local Club just because we've had nothing but great experiences playing local clubs, and we owe, and I say we as in both Beeef and Ivy Boy, so much to the people who book those places and the people who attend those places and bartend those places. So definitely paying respects to them. We would be nothing without you. And then I guess I will stop the festival stage, not because we wouldn't want to play more festivals. I heard they pay well. And you get to play outdoors again in most capacities, but we just haven't gotten the invite a whole lot. So maybe it's out of bitterness that I'm going to stop that. But festival operators and promoters, get in touch. We can change that. We could switch that to a play pretty easily. So.
I think I agree with that exact layout. That's exactly what I would do. I spent some time in Portland, Oregon, and
cool.
At the time when I was there was a great house that did a lot of great shows, and they were in the backyard sometimes. And those were some of the most fun things I'd ever been to. And the neighbors would get mad, of course, and the police would come, but it was still fun.
Part of the charm.
Next up. Yeah, exactly. Next category is pre-show routine. So here are your three options. Solo relaxation, which is like you are just getting in the zone, chilling. The other option is extroverted partying/chatting. So partying, I don't necessarily mean going crazy, but definitely like being out in the room and talking to people at the bar and like inviting people into the green room, having beers. And then the other option is watching the other bands. So you're just in the room watching the bands. You're not necessarily like going crazy. You're just watching the bands. So how would you rate them?
Yeah, I'll go in opposite order. I'm going to stop solo relaxation. It's just not possible for me. I can't like just sit still on my own when I know that I'm going to be hitting the stage. I'm like, I always have to have like I'm an infamous pacer. I just like walk around when I have something on my mind. So that wouldn't work for me. I wish it would. I would love to play that, but it's just not feasible. I'm going to pause. I'm actually going to pause watching the other bands, which is a controversial pick. And it's nothing against the bands, but I am always at least passively listening to the other bands, and will tune in for like, I'll go to like the front for like a song or two, just so that I am getting kind of a good idea of them. But typically, I need to like be active in something to like kind of take my mind off of of what's to come, which leads me to my play, which is less so the extroverted partying, but usually like profusely thanking people for coming to the show. One of the, you kind of brought up of like, it's messy playing shows because of like the logistics involved. And one of the logistics involved is like getting people to your show. And I am always like super grateful for anybody who comes to see either of my bands perform, to the point where I like feel indebted to them. And when they come to see me, I'm usually like, at least in some way, acknowledging the fact that I am like, thank you so much for being here. So that's kind of why I'm playing that one, is because I'm usually like feeling guilty that I even made somebody come to the show in the first place and have to interact with them. So
I feel you on that. That's how I feel every one of these shows that I record. Afterwards, you're about to get this treatment. Afterwards, I'm gonna be like, thank you so much. I know it's a lot. Like, it's an hour and 15 minutes. It's a lot. Sorry. So I agree with you on those. Next up, formats. We got singles, we got LPs, which would be like full length albums, and then we got EPs. Play, pause, stop. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm going to, I'm going to stop EPs, because I think that if you have enough for an EP to me, sit on it a little bit longer and it'll become an LP. There are some great EPs out there where the songs just fit together perfectly. So I would definitely think that that's worthy of putting out. But I will pause singles because I do think that like I am a person who the songs lead the way for me. So like I tend to actually not have a lot of no skips albums. I'm like either the song clicks for me or it doesn't. So there's a lot of albums that I bought based off of just like liking half the songs on it and that type of thing. So I think that shows the power of singles. But ultimately, I think I admire and will play the LP. I just think it shows a lot of patience and a lot of high effort, high reward of like, here is a body of work that was meant to be cohesive, that we put a lot of thought and effort into, that will, I happen to think that albums are like more immortal than releasing singles and EPs. It's just like this thing that will live on for a long time. So I have kind of in my past typically only kind of worked towards releasing albums. But I do know in our new streaming dominated landscape that singles tend to make a bigger dent now than they used to. But call me old fashioned. I love the old LP too.
I think I agree 100% with the way that you ranked these. And I will say, like, to give you an example with the Ivy Boy album, it was a single, I guess, that like made me want to hear the album. So that was the value there. But the way I listened to stuff, like Heavy on the Vine was what it was. And within the first like 45 seconds, I was like, oh, I got to just hear this whole album. So I just like paused the song, went to the album and started at one. And that's how I consume music. Cause it's like a single is like you get a little taster and then you're like, oh, I actually want the meal. I want like the whole thing. I want the 7 courses, man. I don't need just like a little bite of the, that little egg in a fancy cup or whatever. I need like everything. I want the dessert. I want the hot tea. I don't even know what kind of meal I'm eating right now, but I agree with you. It's a LP type game. Next up, let's talk about writing. So would you rather write, not even would you rather, but play, pause, stop. Writing totally solo, writing with one writing partner, that could be a producer, it could be a drummer, whatever, or writing with a whole band?
Yeah, so I will. I'll start with play on this one. As much as I love collaboration, I will play solo. Only because I've never really known how, and I'm super curious as to how other people write lyrics in collaboration. It just seems like such a solitary activity or practice to me. Just because people's, especially like lyric writing style is so different that I can't imagine like one person writing a line and then another person writing a line. So I'm not even sure I know what it looks like otherwise. So I'm going to play solo. But I will pause whole band because I think when it comes to the writing the music behind it, I do value the collaboration behind that and getting as many perspectives as possible without, as you were kind of saying earlier, overthinking. Like sometimes you like second guess if there are too many cooks in the kitchen, and that can be annoying and actually lead to like a less great final product. But for the most part, I like kind of getting those different perspectives in there. And then I guess I will stop the one writing partner. I've just never really I've never had that experience before. It would be something that I would definitely be open to. 'Cause again, it's typically like starts with me and then bringing other people in, but it would be really cool to kind of get the experience of doing it directly in collaboration with somebody. I've just never done it to this point, so that one's going to be stopped for now.
That makes sense. You brought up the whole band thing. One thing that I learned, I don't remember what album of mine it was. If I looked back, I'd know it from the cover or whatever. But the first time I ever brought a bunch of people in to play like all the other parts, I remember it. I I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I wanted to be as prepared as I could be. And I like made my own charts, which like are basically just me writing the chords because like I don't know how to actually talk about music. So I'm like, I think it's like a C minor 7 or something. And I'd like just give them these like, I typed it in Notepad, printed it out, brought like charts for everybody, like tried to make it cool. It was okay. This next time I overcorrected and I just came in and was like, guys, here's the chords that I'm going to play and you play anything you want and I'm going to be cool with it. I tried to be like real nice, you know? And that didn't really work either. And then at that point, that's when I was like, I don't really want to play with the whole fucking band. I just can't do this because like I can't thread that needle. I was very frequently like, how am I going to tell you your part's not good?
Yeah.
It's just, you played the part. I'm sure it's fine. There's no right answer, you know? So.
And there's definitely times when like because again, I'll write most of the song and then bring it to the band where the final product comes out completely different than what I had initially envisioned. And like, there's something really nice about like having to kind of submit to that. But at the same time too, I'm like, I wonder what it would have sounded like if it was like the way that I had also like initially envisioned it. So, but I also hear you on the like, part of the reason why I feel like I don't collaborate more in the process is because I feel very like skeptical of my own like music theory knowledge and stuff. Like sometimes I don't know what chords I'm playing or like where like how to actually like vocalize it well to somebody else. So I'm like, better I don't embarrass myself and like completely confuse everyone.
It's also like just so I can see why you would like stop the one writing partner thing because that is almost like the most vulnerable because you're like, okay, this is it. Like if the communication breaks down, I can't look at the bassist and go, can you explain to him what I'm trying to say? You just have to kind of like be like, okay, I don't know how to communicate this to you. Like one thing for me is when I write lyrics, like just from back in the day, because the way I first got into making music was through making like beats, right? And I would come up, looping was a very important part to me, right, of the process. So even now to write lyrics, I'll just like loop 4 bars and just let them loop and just mumble over them until I get where I'm getting. But like even trying to explain that to a producer sometimes, you're like, dude, literally don't even hit record. Just put it on loop, hit play, and I'll like go away for like 20 minutes.
It out. Yeah.
And when you come back, I'll have it for you. You know, but it's true. It is the writing process, the creation process, very vulnerable, and it's there's no right answer to it. The last one in our play, pause, stop is eras. This seems pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy, but we got the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s. So play, pause, stop. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll start at the end. I'll stop the 80s. I have deep love and respect for a lot of 80s bands, but it just doesn't stack up to the other two for me. So part of it is because I only lived for 1 year of the 80s. So perhaps I just don't have the sentimental connection to it. But I will pause the 2000s. I have that was like when I was coming of age, so I'm able to attach a lot of memories to a lot of great bands. It's when I kind of started having my own music tastes and like doing my own music discovery. So like being able to decide what I like and I don't like, and looking at in real time, like seeking out, you know, indie bands or local bands. And there's still some albums from that era that are some of my favorites of all time. One of them, and I'm like, people get surprised and sometimes pissed about this. The first 2 Kings of Leon albums are like 2 of my favorite albums ever. And like I revisit those all the time. But like, yeah, when the Strokes were coming out and stuff, it was like, that was when I was like, oh, I'm getting on Napster and things are never going to be the same for me ever again. So much love to the 2000s. But the 90s take the crown on this one. I just like, just too many bands that mean so much to me who, even if some of them who weren't even at their biggest in the 90s, but played throughout the 90s. I also have like, what some might consider guilty pleasures, but to me it's just like I love how many one-hit wonders there were in the 90s who like still I listen to all the time. And like I feel like we're in an era now where one-hit wonders are just like not really a thing anymore, like, or at least as prevalent as they were in that era. So yeah, I think the 90s were a fascinating decade. They went through like several different identities within those 10 years. And I listen to 90s music like relentlessly still. So
one thing that always sticks out to me about the 90s is like when you talk about the radio friendly kind of pop leaning stuff that also it's not, I don't say that in a mean way because it's a lot of stuff that I really love, like Alanis Morissette, Sheryl Crow, stuff like that. My things that always stick out to me there are the drums. The drum production of that era is just so cool. It's like, oh my God, these drums sound incredible. Like Jagged Little Pill, the entire album, those drums are just like, holy shit. It's like, you know, a spiritual experience, you know?
Totally. Yeah, no, there was just so much different stuff happening then. And yeah, I mean, Jagged Little Pill is a top 5 album for me all time too. Like there's just, it's the best. I love it. And I'm also like, oddly, if again, anybody who's listening, feel free to DM me. I'm like an obsessive scholar of Woodstock 99. I've like ingested every piece of media there is about it. And like, I'm just completely fascinated by what an absolute like both nightmare, but like diamond in the rough it is too. And so, yeah, it's like interesting that the decade culminated in that. And it felt like this like concrete turning point from 90s to 2000s.
Yeah, the 90s lore is insane, and it is a very storied decade. A great choice for the last play of the show. Perry, why don't you tell the people where they can find you, what you got coming up?
Yeah, so Ivy Boy, the record is out now, came out in October. It is self-titled, called Ivy Boy. You can find it across all streaming sites. Nothing physical right now, but working on maybe getting tapes or vinyls or CDs or something like that. Playing around Boston, a few gigs coming up, a DIY one this weekend, and then a couple in March. And then Beeef too, that's my other band. You can check out Beeef. Our most recent record is called Somebody's Favorite. Came out about a year and a half ago. And we're playing February 27th, I believe, at Brighton Music Hall in Boston for Allston Pudding's 15th birthday party. It's an all-ages show. It's going to be awesome. Come on out if you're in the area. And yeah, reach out if you enjoy the music or want to play or anything like that. Always love hearing from people.
Hell yeah, that's amazing. Not every day, listeners, viewers, is it that you get the founder of Allston Pudding being like, slide in my DMs, I'll send you MP3s. I love it. I love it. This is a spirit that has disappeared from the DIY scene in the last 15 years. If you guys want to support what we're doing over here at the Tape Club, you can go to tapeclub.substack.com. That's where you can sign up. You can sign up for free to get like, you know, newsletters, podcasts, whatever. And then you can sign up for the paid one if you want. It's $5 a month. And every quarter, you'll get a shipment that includes a new little compilation cassette like this one. This one is from December 2025. So we make these every quarter, and they are kind of very short run, kind of, I think we maybe make like 30 copies total, and they're not available digitally. They're purely these. When they're gone, they're gone. If you like little collectibles, could be a fun thing to sign up for. And you also get a few cassette tapes from my little collection back there that get thrown in. So cassette lovers, you know, come together. It's a fun thing to do. Perry, thank you for coming on the show. Really, really appreciate you taking the time. And listeners and viewers, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. And I will see you next time. The J-Card podcast is a fully independent production. It is made possible by listeners and viewers just like you. So if you want to support us, tapeclub.substack.com is the place to go.